Color Out of Space is a brand new 2020 science fiction horror film from director Richard Stanley, who did The Island of Dr. Moreau. This guy barely did anything. He's done a very few amount of films, so this is a return for him, and so a lot of people were looking forward to that, and he teamed up with Nicolas Cage to tackle an H.P. Lovecraft story. Now, this has been adapted a few times. I actually watched a Color Out of Space adaptation for a buddy of mine. It was in black and white, ultra low budget, and I remember not caring for it all that much. So now I am not familiar with H.P. Lovecraft's work almost at all, so I'm not really the best person to tackle his adaptations on that level, to where I could be like, oh, well, wow, this is a great H.P. Lovecraft, and whatever. I don't have that credibility to me at all. But what this story is about is a family lives in a secluded area, and one night a meteor strikes outside of their house, and when it does, it starts to affect them and the earth and water around them. As I said, this has Nicolas Cage in it. It also has Tommy Chong in it, which was very interesting to see Tommy Chong in this. Now, I think there will be a few different audiences for this film. There's a lot of fans of Nicolas Cage and are wanting to see him get crazy and do his Nick Cage thing like he did in Mandy, or that's kind of become its own thing. Like, I feel like Nicolas Cage is having this total resurgence, almost like a B-movie Keanu Reeves, where people are just going to see anything that Nick Cage is in to watch him go crazy. And then you have a bunch of H.P. Lovecraft fans who are definitely going to want to check this out. And then you have fans of the director who's really looking forward to seeing what he's going to put out there. So you kind of got a lot of different groups coming together to check this film out. Now, this film has a lot of elements from something like The Thing, which with Lovecraft, you're going to get tentacle monsters, stuff like that. And with that stuff, for the most part, I was pretty pleased. Now, there isn't a lot of that kind of stuff, but when it is there, it's pretty cool. One of my complaints towards that, though, would be the CGI. And there was, I don't want to say a lot, but a decent amount of it. And the budget wasn't big enough for it, so the CGI in it actually brought the film down. But there's also a good amount of practical work as well, which of course always looked so much better. And I absolutely prefer that within this. But that stuff was mostly pleasing to me. I did like that, and that's really what I came for. And the other thing I came for, like a lot of people will, is Nicolas Cage's performance, because I wanted to see if he would just go for Nick Cage, if he'd go for that crazy guy, that over-the-top thing. And while at times he does, and I'm not going to say he doesn't, and maybe it's just because I personally thought his performance in this was fine when he was being normal dad. Like, he was a dad in this movie, and he was the normal dad guy. He was fine. He was just a basic blah actor that looked like Nicolas Cage. Like, there wasn't giving any performance in that made me think all that much of him. Then he goes for the I'm losing it. Things are starting to happen, and he's changing, and his aggression is getting stronger, or his attitude is changing. And then that is where it honestly lost me with his performance, because I just thought it was pretty terrible. Now, I kind of compare this, and somebody pointed this out to me. I don't know if this is true or not. I should say Teddy Brown pointed this out to me. That the director was a big fan of the vampire movie he was in. What's that movie called? Vampire's Kiss or something? Which I've only seen once, and is probably one of the funniest performances I've ever watched. The I'm a vampire. Like, if you've ever seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. You know that accent. that speech pattern that he gives when he's trying to give that insanely over the top performance. So I guess, now I could be wrong, maybe he was just kidding on this. I think he was being serious though, that the director was a big fan of that movie and actually wanted him to emulate it. And while I was watching the movie before having knowledge of that, I was like, he's acting like the dude in Vampire's Kiss, which is horrid. Like, it's comically horrid. And the film's played very straight. So in like Vampire's Kiss, I think that's what it's called. Now I'm thinking like maybe I'm saying this fucking title wrong. I think that's it though. His performance fits the tone of the film because the tone of the film is more quirky and ridiculous and fun. This film isn't at all. It's very straight-laced, serious science fiction horror. So I found it to be very misplaced. Now, I think there will be a lot of people who excuse that because they're used to Nicolas Cage giving shoddy performances. I think he can give amazing performances. I think he can give mediocre performances. And I think he can give amazingly bad performances or horribly bad performances. Like, I've seen him kind of give it all spectrums of the acting realm he's kind of hit in. And for me, this, during his freak out moments, because I do think there's a lot of people who watch this purely for Nick Cage and they'll be like, oh, I just want to see Nick Cage go Nick Cage. So I'm kind of talking to those people. I feel like he dragged the film down for me. Like, I feel like if there was a different person in this role, a better actor for that role, this film would be a much higher caliber for me. I feel like his over-the-top acting actually brought this film down because of the tone of the film, because it is more serious. So Nick Cage, weirdly, and this doesn't usually happen, especially in a role like this where he's supposed to kind of be over-the-top and giving that extravagant attitude, it actually, yeah, it didn't service the film for me. It actually brought it down. Now, as far as the story went, the story is pretty basic. I mean, there's nothing groundbreaking here. It's all kind of straightforward. The characters, I can't really say I ever really connected with anyone when things were happening, when the characters were in peril, or you thought something might go down, might affect them, might hurt them. I didn't really care. I just never felt like I spent enough time with them emotionally to give a shit. So they kind of lost me in that way. So you have a very basic plot. You have characters that are fine. They're okay. They're nothing, they're nothing that you're going to attach yourself to and be like, wow, I really like that person. I really like that character. I hope they get out of this. I hope they like the guy who's testing the water. They say his job title a bunch of times in the movie. I forget. I watched it yesterday and I already forgot what it was. He probably was the most likable character in the movie to me. His performance was the best in the movie. And then the little Wiccan daughter was okay as well. But outside of that, I mean, really just didn't care anybody. I didn't really care about anybody. So when it came to those tense moments, it was more I was there to see the Nicolas Cage show and to see some tentacle monsters and some really cool visuals, because the movie does have some really saturated, like dark colors and bright violets and neon fluorescent colors into it, which I of course always love. There's not enough of them here, but I did appreciate them aesthetically when they were on the screen. The score, I honestly don't even remember. That doesn't say much to me though, the fact that I don't even remember the score off the top of my head. I'm sure it was fine, it was serviceable to the moment, but honestly, when I'm sitting here thinking about it, I'm like, did I care about the score? I didn't that much. The pacing of the film is fine. I feel like it just moved along exactly at the pace it needed to, so I didn't really have any issues there. Yeah, overall, I thought this movie was good. I think that's kind of where I came to on it. I wasn't blown away by it. I wasn't in love with it. A lot of friends I know are like loved it and were stoked on it, and that's awesome and all and well. But when I really stepped away from it and thought about it like on a multiple viewing level, because that's kind of how I see film. I see film as something you can come back to and how it holds up on multiple watches. And this is a film that I just don't think I would care for as much as I viewed it more, because I feel it's very hollow in places. I don't feel like there's an interesting story being told. I don't really care about the characters. I think one of the performances doesn't fit the tone of the film. I think so. As I said, like, to me, it was a fine one watch, not something I have really much interest in going back to watch, but I'm not mad that I saw it. Now, of course, mileage will vary. Some of you will disagree heavily one way or the other. It's terrible, it's wonderful. That's that. For me, I'm kind of just in the middle. And my favorite things, the color scheme and the monsters when shown. Those are the two things that I really enjoyed. And I honestly feel like if it wasn't for those things, I would be like, I didn't like this movie. So those two things elevated. Everything else kind of brought the film down for me. So anyways, it's at Redbox right now. That's where I picked it up. And let me know when you check it out, if you've checked it out. And let me know what you thought. Adios.